Okay, good.
It's okay.
Joke will give a short introduction of the workshop. We have printed handouts. And okay, Joke, explain what your the material you hand out and explain what we should do with it.
You see the last sheet of my lecture a few days ago, and it is full of old friends, old thoughts. Everyone here knows the 4 rows of 7 and has thought about it already. Making the combination, let the one row explain the other, that's a training we didn't do so many times. So if you are able to see the Buddhic correlation between those rows of 7, the teachings, the principles, the virtues, and the end result, the initiations, if you see that better, helped by the other rows, then we are preparing better to present Theosophy in the world, and not only Loma Theosophy, but Theosophy in general, for there is no difference between both. The only thing is that the Loma Theosophy tries to keep the original theosophical teachings of H.P. Blavatsky as pure as possible. There's no difference. So please join all of us and put your hearts on the table with what you ever thought about the correlation of, for instance, the teaching of Svabhava and the virtue, the character aspect of viraga, what that gives, what that does to the kama desire principle in any human being. And if you know that, you are so much better prepared to help others finding the way to develop themselves in a spiritual way. That's all I have to say. It's only about how we are going to work. Are there questions before we start? It's simple. Yes, it's simple. So we thought about...
I think the statement is simple.
Mm-hmm.
The statement is simple.
Yes. Okay. The question is simple, and the answers, in fact, are also simple. Yes. Never say to your child that they are not able to grasp geometry or Sanskrit or whatever. For then they think, I can't do it. And everyone can, really. And that's why I ask you to think about seemingly difficult things.
I think we can run for an hour, something like that. So we have really time to discuss it with each other. And then we can start to combine. And then we have also time to discuss the combination.
Oh, yes. So can we to the right?
Yes. Would you mind quickly? My father's saying he doesn't understand what's going on. He was safe for it.
I think this was a very interesting question, and Joke, you really challenged us by saying that, you know, if you take a good look at it, it's not that hard. So we took a good look, and we started by asking a couple of questions, and the first question was, so how are we supposed to look at this exercise? And why are we going to do this exercise? What does this question actually mean? So basically what we did is we slowed down before we started answering the question. And took a closer look at what is it actually that we're doing when we're doing this exercise, when we're trying to answer this question. Monica? Could you jump in?
Sure. We had some. We were trying to find a key to look. We were trying to find keys to look at what was in front of us, and we needed a definition for what correlation means, what is an analogy, and what are the correspondences. We had not an easy time with this, because it looked like the correspondences and analogies were provoking our intuitional part, and the correlations were more structural. So the intuitional and analytical part in us fought, and it was interesting.
It was almost like we were fighting, almost.
Yes.
In harmony, of course.
No, you go. You go.
Okay. So the basic question was, before we jump into how do we look at this question, and how is that useful to how we analyze? So if we would jump immediately into starting to answer the question, we would probably come up with a very monastic answer. And by slowing down and taking a closer look at what the question actually is and how we approach it, that would be a good way to trigger our Buddhic insights. And then we also have an answer, or a bit of an answer. We found that we could relate prajna to Atman as the way to getting to Atman, but then we could substitute prajna with buddhi as well. So buddhi as a way to getting to Atman. We had a bit of a discussion about how we should look at the 7 jewels. And I think we came to the conclusion that if we would just look at the first row and look at correlations there and meaning there, it would probably take about a week. Then it would be not that hard to add the second row and the third row, but the fourth row would be really hard to get in there as well. So to summarize maybe, or to end up with Ben's words, we tried to find an answer. We talked from our inside, we talked from ourselves, and because we're all at a different level of development towards Atman, we all come up with different answers.
Okay, and Truth's father was at our table for like 1 minute, but I remember that yesterday he was telling me that there is a big difference in between the view that an older person has to life and the view that a younger person has. So he was giving me an example there where GDP was talking to in the dome where you were in the middle, and you told us that GDP used to give his speeches. He said that, look at that tree. Now at 60, I can feel it. I can look at that tree and have and be with it. When I was younger, I acknowledged the tree, but I just passed by it. I didn't have a relationship with it. So it was easier for us. Why am I doing this analogy? It was easier for us to go on the top row and then give the interpretations freedom for the bottom rows, and that was our conclusion, and that's when we came to peace.
We started out with asking questions, which is always a very good start, as you have seen also in the first group. And from those questions, we kind of built up a general image of this scheme. And so we looked at the whole first, all 28 items on it. And we said, in the end, we came to the conclusion that you are this. This is you. This is what we are. And there's nothing unfamiliar to us in this. Only we might not always realize it. So that was the first step. And then we looked at every single column to see what we can learn from that, what does it mean, and what we can do with that. And then the first column, the septenary entity, which you are, which every ant is, which every crystal is, that is actually to understand where we are in our development and where we can go. And the second, the 7 jewels, teaches us the laws of nature which we are part of, so which we are also producing together with all the other entities, all the other consciousnesses. And that is the context in which we live. Oh, what did I say? It is the second column teaches us the laws of nature, of which we are part, but of which we produce together with all the other consciousnesses. So that's the context in which we exist, so to speak. And then the third column, the paramitas, are in fact, once we understand what we are, what we can be, and in which context we can develop that, are our inner tools, so to speak, because every paramita is actually slightly above every aspect of our being. It is the mastering instrument of every aspect of our composite being. And we elaborated a little bit on the viraga, because we thought kama, that is as thinking entities, as human beings, thinkers, we are more or less evolved to the kama aspect of thinking, and that's a very important moment in our evolution, because this is where we start to choose, to say whether we want to be this internal God or not. And this is, of course, the consequences of that is that we activate our inner paramitas, you could say. So going to the fourth column, we decided that this is no more and no less than the whole process, every step we go through to become who we really are. So that is the consciousness that is moving from one level to the next by its own doing. And once we had defined the columns, we tried to make the connection between them. And then we came to the conclusion that the whole scheme tells us what the path is. How we evolve, grow from this unself-conscious spark, just out of the animal world, into this fully self-conscious human God, so to speak, at the end of the Manvantara. So that is what we wanted to add.
Are there more additions to your talk?
We call it initiation 1, 2, and 3 on this level, and I think maybe it would be better to use the Buddhist names for those initiations. The first one being the stream enter, the Srotapati, and the next one is Sakritagaman, the one that has only one more rebirth, because Blavatsky says when you reach that stream entry, you have just 7 lifetimes to go. And the next level, of course, you've used up all but one of them. And the third initiation is the Anagaman, when you don't have any more incarnations, and you become, in the Buddhists, the Arahan or the Arahat. And they don't believe, the Theravada doesn't believe there is a master, which would be the 5th initiation. So I think maybe using known terms for that might be better.
Did everyone hear this? Yes, you can find it in the Voice of the Silence, those
That's correct.
terms.
That's correct.
Yes.
I believe they're in the, I'm not sure if they're in the Pali or the Sanskrit, but they're available in both forms.
In our group we had very nice discussions, in some other discussions than we have heard till now. What we did about the correlations between the principles,
the 7 jewels, the virtues, and the initiations, we started with focusing on manas, the thinking part. And then we came to the conclusion that this scheme, you have to see it as from the human perspective. Because if you talk about the 7 jewels, they are universal, so they have relations with all the principles in our constitution as a human being, but of course also in the constitution of all other beings. So you have to see this scheme from our perspective. Then we had a closer look between the relation between manas and evolution. And evolution, of course, means developing. And what we are developing now is our thinking, our monastic part at the moment. And the future is, of course, the high aspects you also find in the scheme. Then someone made the remark, yes, we are dual. We have a dual nature. And if you have a look at the virtue related to the 5th level, that is virya, and I will read it now what it means. The dauntless energy that finds its way to the supernal truth out of the mire of lies terrestrial. And in this virtue you can distinguish the lower and the higher manas on which you can concentrate. And that is this an answer on the fact that we have a dual nature, our higher aspects and our lower aspects. And you can say our purpose as human being is try to stay on the higher level, to concentrate on that level and to stay there. And that is why you need to develop that virtue. And then we ask the question, how are you going to do that? Very practical remarks were made. Take a certain period of the day, see it as a training, and see it as that you reincarnate every day again. And for instance, by reading an inspirational book to start the day with. And that has to be combined with a Buddhic vision. Keep a Buddhic vision in your mind all day, in the background of your thoughts. So to start the day with a practical, inspirational moment, and then combined with a vision you have all day in your mind. And that is the way then to develop that virtue combined with the monastic aspect in your constitution. Another conclusion was that the higher nature in ourselves don't speak a daily life language. It is of a higher, deeper level. And you have to identify yourself with your higher manas. And the principle you need for that is karma as a neutral principle, and you can choose to concentrate with that principle on your higher aspects in your constitution or on your lower aspects. And of course we advise to try to concentrate on the higher aspects. So you see that you also need other aspects in your constitution to develop your monastic part in your constitution. Another thing that was mentioned was that in manas all other principles are reflected. So there's also, and that of course is the same for all other principles. Everything reflects everything. To do that, you need courage and also your spiritual will. And they are important aspects to go on the pilgrimage. That is, you can find it in the also in the Asiatic tradition as the third fundamental principle. Then we had a look on several relations between principles and virtues. First, we had a look at karma and viraya, and that is indifference to pleasure and pain. Illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. And that means that you have to develop indifference, and also that you have to evolve, develop in yourself indifference in the good way of speaking. And if you have a look to the relation between manas and viraya, then you can also see that it's also a necessary virtue to develop. Otherwise, you cannot develop manas in a correct way. And if you have a look to buddhi and dhyana, that is contemplation, meditation, related to the Buddhic aspects. So you see that if you have a closer look to the virtues and the principles, you see that they are closely related. Buddhic, vision, contemplation, meditation, that is a natural combination. The next subject that was discussed was what means losing your lower principles. And then the conclusion was that it is only a way of saying. You can describe it as losing yourself, but what does that mean? Very important is to realize that we then talk about the quality of the principles, especially the quality of the lower principles. And that means losing yourself means in fact that you have to evolve your lower principles to a higher level. So you don't lose them in an absolute way. That is very often things you lose yourself, so it is gone. There's nothing anymore left. But as a being, we all always consist of 7 principles. So it is only a way of saying. And in another way, you can say that it is a concentration on your inner teacher. There's another way of saying losing yourself. Your lowering self is the same as trying to concentrate on your inner teacher. And another way of saying is that it is giving up attachments. And that refers to viraga. For instance, to refer to a former lecture that means use Wilson only as a vessel as long as it is useful. And that is giving up the attachments we have in our life. That is these are all only description of saying yourself losing your lower principles. We have also had a closer look at the relation between buddhi, the 2 paths, and dhyana. Dhyana, the virtue of contemplation and meditation. And that is, of course, a broader vision than when we act on the monastic level. And the 2 paths, that means that it are 2 ways to develop the spiritual aspect in ourselves. We described it as the Marina, Amrita and the Pratyeka jhana. And the difference is that if you choose for the Amrita jhana, you are developing the higher aspects of Buddhi. And if you choose for the Pacheka jhana, you concentrate on the lower aspects of Buddhi. So that is a choice. And in the end, we had a closer look at the initiations. And then we said the first three are they are teachings. Very important, of course. And if you go to the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, then you can say that they are levels of identification with your inner teacher. The first, epiphany, that means you have a short moment, just an appearance of your inner teacher. So it is a deeper vision. Theophany, that means that is then you talk about a kind of identification, but some longer than the 4th. If you talk about the 6th, theonausti, then you can say that means breathing the inner God in you. So that is a higher level of identification with your inner teacher. And the last one, theopathy, that means you have become your inner teacher. It is an identification with your inner teacher. And of course, that is on the atomic level in our constitution. Then you have reached the level of identification on that level in your constitution. And this was a brief summation of our...
The most important thing was for us, our group, by going over it, we start during the discussion more and more to realize what the relation was between the 4 columns. Yeah. And then we also, the second step from that was that we also tried to understand better what the function was of the paramitas. And that we were seeing that the paramitas was a type of, how do you say that, medicine for coming out of certain conditions and not sticking in conditions. Of course, we had to shrink in our group, so that makes it more, let's say, practical in a number of ways. But I must say it was a good exercise. But from the first moment, I have to say, we were looking around for hell, what should we do with it? Yeah? And then by discussing it with each other, we're coming further and further. So I'm absolutely happy with Ben, because he was really making a short note of it. Yeah? So that was a good thing.
Anyway, this last 2 hours, I think, has proven again how strong our thinking faculty is as an instrument. I mean, ideas, thoughts, being born here or there or somewhere else, have been picked up by others. And what for us is, as the 4th group, we can add to that, well, we'll have to see. And I think Joko already gave something away, because we looked at this diagram as this, how do you call it? This list with different names as a potential tool. Or the question actually we asked ourselves is, how may this work in our work to help other people finding a way to deal with their life and its problems? But first of all, to answer that question, of course, we have to understand ourselves what it is all about and how it does work. And I think Joke already gave that away. Let me see. I think Bianca was the one mentioning the different lines, the different columns. Finding out when you talk to people, then it's usually not a problem coming to a conclusion with other people that they are not only their body, that there is more they are existing out of, and then you come to the fact that that a human being is a composite being. And adding to that, and we all recognize in the second column the 7 jewels, and the seven jewels in our organization is an important part of a follow-up course of our course, Thinking Differently, where people are helped, without mentioning the word theosophy, to build up their own life philosophy. So these are the 7 jewels, or you could say these are the ways for people to build up their own vision on life. On the third column, and that indeed was mentioned, I think, by Ben, or by Ben's group, by Herman, this is something a little bit new for us to bring into the equation, the virtues, which we have found out now are very helpful, because these virtues we need to master the principles mentioned in the second column. And in the fourth column, I think Bianca already mentioned that as well, the initiations are the moments where you actually have to prove that you are that you have mastered these virtues. So eventually the conclusion was that this would be a very helpful tool if we speak with other people in our life, to explain to them how to look at life without perhaps even mentioning the word theosophy, and how to deal with their daily problems. Of course, the next question would be that we have to see whether it would work. We have not been able to go through all the 7 principles. We have done only 3 of them, and obviously, and that's what other groups did as well, you are first looking at what makes a man different from other living entities. That's our thinking faculty, our manas. So, looking at manas, does it make sense to combine that with evolution? Yes, of course. I mean, we quite easily came to the conclusion that evolution is, for our manas the most important aspect to develop, or actually that's what it's all about. But we added to that, what is not mentioned here, is the self-directed evolution, which of course is mentioned, and that's the next step in the virtues, where it's mentioned the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth out of the mire of terrestrial. So that means, so we have concluded out of that a self-directed evolution, where you need your free will and where you need a lot of courage. And I think Madame Blavatsky mentioned that in the Voice of Silence, the inner warrior, which is referred to here as well. So that one is okay for us. I think the next one we had a look at was the kama, the desire. Well, let me see. Swabhava is one of the principles. You have to help me with that, Bauke.
That's what the first thought that came up with me. If we reincarnate, we have to desire the kama to become ourselves again. That's what I saw as a link to Swabhava.
Yeah, that's very clear to me. Hopefully now, after 2 times you mentioned that. Right. You need a Wilson, yes. No, we need each other here. That's I think the conclusion to be made. Let me see. Important there, if you look at the virtues, where we had an interesting discussion, what's mentioned there, and under viraga, the indifference to pleasure and pain, we all understand. Illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. But then the addition between brackets, which Dr. De Peruca gave us, with the words raga. I mean, I instantly, perhaps it's completely wrong, I instantly recognize the word rage, but dominating a desire for, mastering the raga, which has been mentioned in a very visual way. The lower parts of your desire eating your life out, wasn't it? Because of course desire is sevenfold, like all the other qualities are, but we are looking at here at the lower parts of desire. All right, the third one we had a look at was vitality, prana, and in particular because that was the one where on the principle side we had some questions how to bring that into correlation with hierarchies. And what I wrote down here, and which makes sense to me, is that if you want to master your prana, it's important to understand how hierarchies work, and in the most practical way, it's if you work within a group where everybody plays its role. I mean, prana is under control, I would say. Or perhaps somebody else wants to add something to that? Joke?
We talked about the fact that the teachings of the hierarchies means that you have a vision of all consciousnesses in the universe emanating from each other, and therefore correlated to each other. Every being is a radiation or an emanation of another being. And then you see the whole network of the lifeblood of the universe flowing. And you have a vision of the cosmic clock, to say it simple. And then you know that everything happens exactly in its own right time. And therefore you don't have any, how do you say that, impatience anymore with yourself and with your fellow man, because everyone grows in its own time, in his own time, and not in the time that you think he has to grow in, his own speed.
Thank you for this addition. That's about it, but I think the most important conclusion from our group is that this piece of work not only is something we had a nice discussion on today, but it's something we can continue using and thinking about tomorrow and after that, in using in our daily work when discussing with other people, when talking with other people about life and how to deal with that. And with that respect, I personally think this is a very practical tool for that. Thank you very much.
Maybe we should give maybe a minute or so the opportunity to react on the, let's say, the summaries of the different groups. So if there is a need or a feeling to make a remark on it or so.
It's about prana. Ken Small gave a good example with Catherine Chingley when he said there was a play and all the people were in there. It was a chaos. And she knew exactly how to fix that everyone is in place. I thought that was a very good model for prana and vitality.
You remember, Ken, yesterday on the grounds? you give an example of how KT was doing that with Elsie Benjamin and so on?
What I was trying to say there was that there were two dynamic aspects to Point Loma. A usual viewpoint would be that this was a highly disciplined, orderly place, which it was. People rising same time every day, eating the same every day in silence, school schedule, all those things, music every day. But in terms of process, not structure, within that, then there was other kinds of dynamic activity. And Catherine Tingley herself, most people, like someone writing a biography or Emmett Greenwald in his book, would think, oh, this person is someone, perhaps a negative view from an outsider would be someone could actually criticize Tingley and say she's a very rigid person, perhaps. But actually, she wasn't at all. She was quite the opposite. So in that sense, I was trying to give an example of this person who was highly intuitive, highly spontaneous, and in the moment. And in that sense, she said, I work best in total chaos, and she would actually frequently break the structure that she so carefully created herself and create the chaos within which the potentiality of a person's higher potential could be manifest. Okay, I gave a complicated answer.
I would like to say how good it is to study it in groups, but also to make a summary with all, so you can see the result from the group. And when you see it, and Erwin is a fast typer, ik weet niet how you say the just word, but it gives us a great plan what we have done. And I will, Joke, thanks for this template. This template is also a master plan. And I mean that in the rewards, because when we do that, when we act what we understand, then we can make ourselves a master of life. And then we are also better in staat? Capable to do the things what the world needs. So thank you all.
Okay, sorry.
What I understood from this is that a group work is an extraordinary way to see that people think different. And if I would have been with only 3 people in this room and trying to work out the page, I don't think I would have gained as much as I gained from the whole experiences. Please, I will recommend to myself to not try to do this by myself. I don't know how to say it. There are very big differences in our knowledge about Theosophy. There are books that need to be read, intuition that needs to be practiced, and when we're doing a certain thing together, those differences are coming up, and they are non-violently taken care of in a group. So I suggest that the bigger the group and the organization that you guys have, the better will be the results. So we mellowed out, for example, oh, this is the best way to go about Theosophy. We don't want that, don't we? We wanna use it to the maximum and give space around it. And that's what we did right here. That's what we did in accepting this as an answer. And
we also have this option.
yeah, yes. So remember.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very big difference in between a communistic when we read the newspaper in my school when Romania was communistic, and at the end say, yes, Ceausescu is the best, this is the best way to put Theosophy in practice. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to question this, to work on it, and to understand that we will meet in life people that will say, they will break this. They're going to say, not good. It's too much for me, or it's too little for me. But it is, how I see it is that is a comprehensive approach to remind us to put this in everyday life. And then it's okay. Thank you.
I'm very happy with the conclusion of Monica. I tell you why. Because we have done this morning together what we do in our groups almost every 2 weeks. And what is the main thing in it? The main thing is not coming together and study together, that is just one. But exchange, helping each other, sitting on the table and say, okay, open mind, what do I understand, what I don't. Exchange with each other, so that we help each other to become more clear. Because sitting together on the table this morning, for me, I learn a lot. And then it becomes more clear how the combinations is and what the, how do you say that, the advice in the literature is to solve our Wilson problems, yeah? To stay in tune for this couple of days, yeah? So that is one of the things we have proved, and that brings us very naturally to our next question. What do we want to do next with our Loma Conviviums?